Hello team and welcome to another ATP Geopolitics video with myself, Jonathan M. Spears. This is Ukraine War News Update, first part thereof for the 28th of October 2023. A little bit later today, had quite a late one last night due to going to see one of the world's longest films, Killers of the Flower Moon. Excellent film, really well constructed, superbly realised with set, costumes, acting, accents, look, everything was just really, really well, as I say, well realised. Didn't know anything about the storyline going into the film, knew nothing about it other than Leonardo DiCaprio and Robert De Niro were in it, and that was it. It was fascinating to know that it was a true story and a pretty accurate representation of that story, looking at that this morning. So, yeah, really good film, enjoyed that, but 3.5 hours, come on. I need a time machine. Anyway, let's get to the Frontline update, or not the Frontline update, the news update. This is the Ukrainian General Staff figures for the Russian losses for the day before. As you can see, an uptick from yesterday's figures, which really does, I think, solidify the idea that yesterday's downtick was a result of the weather. There's very heavy rains, apparently. Things are not looking good weather-wise. I guess we're coming into that season where there's going to be a lot of rain, and that rain will affect the movement of troops. It will affect the reconnaissance from drone activity and whatnot, and satellite activity as well. And that then has a knock-on effect to the activities of the troops and the equipment. So, and things like just artillery usage. 740 personnel. Not the highest we've seen in terms of the last couple of weeks, but also not as low as yesterday, pretty much in the middle. 22 tanks and 23 armoured personnel vehicles is a heavy loss for the Russians. 18 artillery systems, that has nudged back upwards. So, yeah, a bad day at the office for the Russians in losing, if you talk about artillery being mechanised equipment, then that's, 60-odd pieces of equipment in one day. 2 anti-aircraft warfare systems will be quite a loss for the Russians. That's over the average for the war. 9 drones and 3 cruise missiles, probably from the night before. Although there were 3 cruise missiles shot down out of 4 Iskanders last night. 11 vehicles and fuel tanks, not the highest number, but still going to hurt the Russians a deal. So this is Andrew Perpetua's loss statistics. He's a map I refer to that compiles what he sees in the socials in terms of the losses. There are 3 honourable mentions, he says. 1 Ukrainian T-72 was destroyed, but I'm like 80% sure it is old, so I left it off. 2 Leopards appeared to be destroyed, but I think the video might come out tomorrow, so I'll wait. So that's possibly another 2 Leopards to add. Now, we have seen a number of Leopards over the last week, and I think that itself tells a story about, the Ukrainians needing to use those vehicles on the front rather than their older ones. What does that tell you about what they're doing, particularly in Robotina, about who they are pushing to the front lines there, or right to the front, using the better kit? Are they starting to run out of stuff to use, or are they purposefully using their better tanks, as you might expect, given an attack you want to use your best equipment? But they were kind of reticent to lose that equipment after they lost a number of them right at the beginning of Malatok Machka. So that you can draw a number of different conclusions from the loss of Leopards in the last week. Let's look at the stats here. And again, we have a Ukrainian to Russian loss of about 1 to 4 probably here, thereabouts. The Ukrainians have lost, let's start with them. Air defense system, a Tunguska. So it does look like an old bit of footage, says Perpetua. And then a few tanks, T-72, T-64. We've got possibly a striker, and then another striker with a mine roller, but other than that, fairly old equipment. Not the worst spread of stuff there, I guess. So the Russians, Estrela 10 surface-to-air missile system, another one of those lost. Recovery vehicle, excavator, crane, so a few engineering pieces, and then some tanks, IFVs, but it's mainly trucks and civilian vehicles lost there in his analysis of the equipment. But still, the Russians losing a lot more than the Ukrainians, although in the meaningful equipment it's not too dissimilar. Right, moving on to Richard Vereka, who works for War Spotting. So War Spotting is basically the equivalent of Oryx. Russia is now visually confirmed to have lost more tanks and IFVs in October than in any other month since March and February, respectively, based on photos and videos from War Spotting. This is even more impressive considering there are still 5 days of the month, and most of the losses do not get added to War Spotting for 2 to 5 days after the events, with others taking weeks or months to be added. So expect this to go up a lot more, he says. Wow. And a breakdown of the Russian tanks over time would look like this, if that is something that is of interest to you. So at the moment, there's quite a spread of tanks with this orange T80BV going downwards as other tanks seem to be increasing in number. So that's a T90A, but unless that's a T90A, it's quite difficult. Yeah, I think that could be. There's quite a few similar colours, so it is difficult to know exactly which one is which, but I have a feeling that's the T90A there going up, which is I think tells you something. A more recent, it's not T90M, which is the most recent T90 variant, but it's still fairly significant. I think that's the T90M there, and that's possibly T90S. So actually T90s now taking up quite a significant proportion, but I'm not sure if that's definitely the colours. They're the three there. You can zoom in and look at that if you want. Pause the video. That is the Russian tank loss there. Right, talking about troop losses, as of today, Russians have lost about 4,000 units of personnel during the offensive, or 4,000 personnel in Avdiivka, according to the Defense Minister Rustem Umerov during a telephone conversation to Defense Minister, US Defense Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin. That is higher than other, I think, Stupin and others have said of late. So that is on the high end of the Russian losses, but what some others have said higher than that, like 5,000 and whatnot, but of the official lines, that shows how incredibly costly Avdiivka has been for the Russians, if that is true. Now, Tim White repeats that, but then shares the UK intelligence update. Over the last week, heavy but inconclusive fighting has continued around the Donetsk Oblast town of Avdiivka, where Russia initiated a major offensive effort in mid-October 2023. Russia has probably committed elements of up to 8 brigades to this sector. These elements have likely suffered some of Russia's highest casualty rates of 2023 so far. Russian nationalist mill bloggers have been harshly critical of the military's tactics. The nature of the operation suggests that Russia's core military political challenge remains the same as it has throughout most of the war. Political leaders demand more territory to be seized, but the military cannot generate effective operational level offensive action. I think that's broadly correct. It doesn't tell us anything particularly new, but they are committing an awful lot of forces to Avdiivka, to that sector, probably under some people are saying this is what Putin really wants. Putin wants Avdiivka, wants that success before the March elections. It could be politically orientated without the military, skill and resources to back up that political desire. So that has resulted, therefore, in huge numbers of losses, but then it could end up being an overwhelming victory where they just, overwhelming in terms of numbers, the Russians are able to achieve their objectives by overwhelming the Ukrainians, even though they lose far, far more than the Ukrainians. And that could end up in a Pyrrhic victory where it leaves the Russians in a worse place, and they could essentially lose more than they have gained in the long run in that supposed victory. This is what the city of Avdiivka now looks like. So it is pretty horrible there, and there's still people who try and live there. And I've said this about Avdiivka before. It's incredible that you get in these war zones people that still live in basements and try and continue some kind of daily existence. It's incredible. This is what the city of Avdiivka looks like. Russian occupiers continue to advance in the city, says Euromaidan Press. So we'll have to look into how far they have got within or around Avdiivka. I don't know if they are within the city. To advance on the city, sorry, that preposition is important there. So I talked to you about this chap who the initial reports were he was stabbed. Then it came out that he was shot. So collaborator Oleg Tsarev was shot. His condition is serious, said Vladimir Rogov, the representative of the occupational authorities of the Zaporizhia region. So this is a chap in Crimea in Yalta who was a bit of a... The Ukrainians see him as a traitor in 2014. He switched over to being pro-Russian after Euromaidan, and he might have been someone to take over in the puppet government that would have been installed had the Russians been successful at the beginning of this campaign. Oleg's condition is very serious. He's currently in intensive care. There is no stabbing. Oleg was shot, he wrote. So previously, Russian propagandists claimed that Tsarev was wounded with a knife. Oleg Tsarev is an ex-deputy of the Verkhovna Rada, so he's a former deputy of the parliament in Ukraine who defected to the side of the occupiers back in 2014. Right, now we turn to distance strikes. We have just 3 cruise missiles being shot down out of 4, so just 4 being sent. Not a huge number. Again, this is possibly a period of sounding out the radars and surface-to-air missile systems, air defense systems around Ukraine. So just a few sent here and there, although these appear to have all been sent against Dnipropetrovsk region. I knew of at least 1 missile shot down, as it turned out. Air defense shot 3 of the Iskanders. So it's not bad for Iskanders to shoot 3 of those down. Officials say the 4th missed its target as well. But as ever with these kinds of claims, it's difficult to know the truth, as Ukraine are fairly good on operational security. Not operational security, just keeping news about strikes low on the ground, I guess. They do have laws to punish people who share footage of these sorts of strikes, and so it's more difficult to find out information about Russian strikes on Ukrainian targets. Anyway, Russia shelled the center of Kherson, damaging over a dozen residential buildings. So this is your general shelling. Currently reported an 80-year-old woman has sustained head injuries. So Kherson and the entire Dnipro River area is under consistent attention from both Russian artillery and Russian aviation as well. Huge explosions heard in Odessa last night. Heard nothing about that since. Don't know what has happened there and whether there are either drones or missiles that are not included in these kind of reports that have hit Odessa. Could well be true. I don't quite understand this from Trent Telenko. AEW planes queuing long-range SAM is a 20 to 30-something-year-old US Air Force, US Navy trick that the Russian Air Force seems to have just executed. The Ukrainian answer was to launch ATACMS on the S-400 SAM launchers. I think this is something to do with some kind of tactic of lining up air defenses, like air defense launchers, for some reason, and then the Ukrainians use that Russian tactic. So let's read about this. Centuri. The Ukrainians have been targeting Russian S-400 SAM systems and launchers in Ukraine using MGM-140A1 ATACMS long-range missiles and other weapons. Here is why. Recent claims by the Russian MOD, Shoigu, that 24 Ukrainian aircraft were shot down over a 5-day period using a new complex may be rooted in truth. What Shoigu was referring to is that Russia has begun using its A-50 AWACS aircraft to detect Ukrainian aircraft and provide the targeting data to S-400 systems in theatre. So this sounds a bit like the Link 17 system that the NATO forces use, and connecting your radar. So when you have a surface-to-air missile system, or when you have a plane in the sky, it's not just the radar that they have on board or with their system that gives the picture of what's happening, but you can link in a whole network of radars and therefore give a much larger picture to, say, the SAM launcher or the airframe in question. And this appears to be what the Russians are trying to do here. So this then substantially increases the operational range of S-400 missiles, which, depending on the model, have a claimed maximum range of 250 kilometers. So it could be that they've hitherto been unable to reach the 250 kilometers due to radar range issues. But yeah, and they could go up to even 400 kilometers. This may explain other observations, such as multiple reports of missiles and air raids in the Sevastopol and Greater Crimea, for which local authorities claimed were the result of exercises of other routine military activity. For your information, you don't issue an air raid alert for harbour defence exercises. It may also explain the recent reports of Russians shooting down their own aircraft. So it could be that the Russians have greatly increased the range of their surface-to-air missile systems. It could be that a number of Ukrainian aircraft have been shot down. Whether it was 24 in 5 days, that seems highly unlikely, and you surely would have seen at least some evidence of that. But it might be that a number of them were shot down. We don't hear too much about, as I say, Ukrainian targets being hit behind Ukrainian lines, and that could well include airframes being shot down. And this has then resulted in the Ukrainians answering that with hitting S-400 sites with ATACMS, and I showed you the smoke of those supposed strikes yesterday, ATACMS strikes. This would be, if this is the case, that they are able to join up their networks like this would be a huge worry for the Ukrainians, but it's a good time to start receiving ATACMS missiles, and I'm pretty sure they are receiving them now from the States. And I would hope that we are seeing them. We know that they've got the green light on those. It's just a case of how many they're going to get and when they're going to get them. But I'd be pretty sure that they'll be filtering through now. I would hope, as a pro-Ukrainian, to see ATACMS, the results of ATACMS missiles being used more widely over the next few weeks. And really, you'd be wanting to hit S-400 system. S-400s are the best that Russia has, really. There are S-500s in theory, but they don't have them. So S-400s are the best that the Russians have in terms of air defense. And if the Ukrainians had taken out 3 launchers, there was originally, when I reported it, the claim was 3 systems, but I think that's probably a translation error. 3 launchers would be incredibly significant and a good use of ATACMS in my books. Anyway, moving on to other bits and pieces, OSINT analyst MT Anderson published a satellite image of the Crimean airfield in Belbek. He believes that 4 MiG-31 fighters are painted because there are no shadows around them. Belbek was supposedly hit the other night, although we've not heard anything about it. But it is a place where Russian aircraft are obviously often kept because it is an air base, but they are also painting, and this is something they've done in a number of air bases, painting Russian planes on the runway to bait the Ukrainians into wasting missiles on just a paint job. However, with the paint jobs they've done, and this has been spotted before, and I've reported this before, they haven't painted shadows on them, which means that it is somewhat easier to tell whether they are real or fake. Anyway, there you go. That's that. These are the traps the occupiers set at night on the positions of the border guards near Avdiivka. The fragmentation mine was detected and neutralized in time. So this is, I mean, pretty scary, isn't it? Really. Let's have a look at this. Here we have someone coming out. Now these of a bunker or basement, and these lines appear to be set to trigger if they were pulled, I presume, rather than just moved like that. They go up and they connect to the top. You can see them going in different directions of this fragmentation mine. That is a substantial mine, and if that had gone off there by pulling on these cords, then that's the end of view. I don't know whether it was neutralized as a mine and these cords aren't therefore active. I don't know how sensitive these triggers are, but you can see the kind of booby trapping that takes place as Russians either leave areas or they booby trap it in some way for the Ukrainians. Here we have something that I haven't reported the last 2 days, but people have been asking me about this. I haven't reported it because it does appear to be It appears to be rumour coming from Russian sources, interestingly, and actually quite a lot of detail around this, around the activities of the health workers and the doctors and how they've locked him in where he's been looked after and so on and so forth. It's a bit like Death of Stalin, if you've ever seen that film. Ananda Yanucci's great piece there. But it's... yeah, Putin's still not dead, reads the Politico headline. There's been 2 days, is it, of rumours online that Putin has died, and they don't seem to go away, the rumours. These kind of rumours are never helped by the fact that the person in question often then isn't seen. Like, the easiest way to dispel this is for them to come out in public next day and go, hey, by the way, I'm alive, hello. Putin, I don't think, has done that, and so these rumours persist. I give it a low probability of being true, but I thought I'd eventually report it to you. Don't get too excited, but, you know, there's a non-zero possibility it's true. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov on Friday denied rumours circulating on social media that Russian President Vladimir Putin is dead, calling them a hoax. This is the second time this week the Kremlin official has had to dismiss speculation about Putin's health. So there were rumours originally that was ill, which I did report. There were rumours that he was ill, and then a subsequent rumour that he's dead, and the rumours still persist that he's dead. And rather than wheel Putin out or bring Putin out or Putin walk out and say hello, Peskov comes out and says, no, he's not dead, which itself kind of higher the probability of Putin being dead. You know, if someone else has to say it rather than Putin, then it's more. Actually, I think it raises that probability. Anyway, there it is. We'll see how that one turns out. That could be one of the most important bits of news of the whole war, and there I am, somewhat dismissing it. But I hope it's true. Anyway. Thank you very much for watching. Please like, subscribe, and share. It's really important that you do like, subscribe, and share, and all that kind of stuff. No, it's not really important. My channel's fine, thank you very much, and I really appreciate all of you. I do look at the numbers and think, God, man, my channel really grinds on. It doesn't, and then so many people claim that they get no notifications. So I just think YouTube hates me. So anyway, whatever. Thanks, guys. Take care. Speak soon.